Meet Daniel and Sarah. Daniel is a 34-year-old software engineer pulling in $95,000 a year. Sarah is a 32-year-old marketing manager making $78,000. Together, they earn $173,000 annually. They have a combined income that puts them in the top 20% of earners in the United States. They own a 3-bedroom home in a decent suburb. They have 2 healthy kids, a dog named Pretzel, and 2 cars in the driveway. By every metric society handed them, Daniel and Sarah did everything right. And yet, every single month, they finish about $400 short. Not broke, not destitute, just perpetually squeezed. 1 medical bill away from stress, 1 car repair away from a fight, 1 layoff away from complete freefall. How is that possible? How do you earn $173,000 a year and still feel like you're drowning? If you've ever looked at your bank account and thought, where does it all go? This video is going to make a lot of things click. My name is Jake, and I spend an embarrassing amount of time reading academic papers about why middle-class families can't seem to get ahead despite doing everything they were told to do. If that sounds like a fun Friday night to you, subscribe because you've found your people. Here's the assumption most people make. 2 incomes are better than 1. If 1 person earns $50,000 and they're comfortable, then 2 people earning a combined $100,000 should be doubly comfortable. The math is obvious. The logic is airtight. You bring in more money, you have more money. Except that's not what happens. And what actually happens is so counterintuitive, it took 2 Harvard researchers to finally name it properly. The phenomenon is called the 2-income trap. It was coined by Elizabeth Warren, and her daughter Amelia Warren Tyagi in their 2003 book of the same name. Their research showed that American families with 2 working parents were actually going bankrupt at higher rates than families from a generation prior who survived on 1 income, and what they found was genuinely shocking. Let me take you back to 1970 because understanding the history is essential to understanding the trap. In 1970, the typical American family was built around 1 income. Dad worked, Mom stayed home, and here's the thing, teaching that family on 1 modest salary could buy a house, own a car, take a vacation, and still save money. According to Census Bureau data from that era, a median male worker's income was enough to cover the median mortgage payment with room to spare. Housing costs consumed roughly 22% of a single earner's income. Medical costs were a fraction of what they are today. And college, tuition at a public university was something you could work a summer job to cover. But here's the part that rarely gets mentioned. That family had a hidden financial weapon. Mum wasn't working. That wasn't just a lifestyle choice. It was a backup plan. If the family hit hard times, there was an entire untapped income stream sitting in reserve. Dad loses his job. Mum enters the workforce. Medical emergency. Mum picks up part-time shifts. That margin, that reserve capacity, it was their safety net. Fast forward to today. Median home prices have increased over 500% since 1970. Adjusted figures show housing now consumes closer to 37 to 40% of median household income. Meanwhile, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, real wages for middle-income workers have grown only modestly in purchasing power over 5 decades. The cost of childcare, healthcare, and education has grown at 3 to 5 times the rate of general inflation. The margin is gone. So let's do the math, because this is where it gets genuinely uncomfortable. Daniel and Sarah earn $173,000 gross. That sounds incredible. Let's actually count it. Federal and state income taxes on a dual income household at their bracket, gone. After deductions, let's say they keep about $128,000 net. That's their starting point. Mortgage on a median home in a good school district, $2,400 a month. That's $28,800 a year. Now we're at $99,200. 2 car payments plus insurance plus gas, $1,100 a month. Gone. Down to $85,960. Childcare. This one hits hard. 2 kids in full-time daycare or after-school programs, $2,200 a month. That's $26,400 a year. Now we're at $59,560. But wait, there's more. Healthcare premiums, co-pays, prescriptions, $700 a month average for a family of 4, down to $51,160. Groceries for a family of 4, $900 a month, down to $40,360. Utilities, phone, internet, subscriptions they keep meaning to cancel, $600 a month, down to $33,160. Work-related expenses, Sarah's professional wardrobe, Daniel's work lunches, gas, commuting, parking, $400 a month conservatively, down to $28,360. Student loan payments, both of them, $800 a month, down to $18,760. And we haven't touched retirement contributions, home maintenance, kids' activities, birthday parties, vet bills for pretzel, or any kind of discretionary spending. $18,760 left for a family of 4 for the entire year. That's $1,563 a month. That's not a typo. That is not a typo. And here's the part that makes this a trap, not just a math problem. Daniel and Sarah made every single decision, the house, the cars, the neighborhood, the childcare, based on their gross income of $173,000. They felt rich on paper. So they made rich on paper decisions, but they were never actually rich. They were living at the edge of a net income they never properly calculated. This is what Elizabeth Warren calls the illusion of affluence. The numbers at the top look so big that people make irreversible, fixed cost commitments before they understand what they actually take home. And once those fixed costs are locked in, the mortgage, the car loans, the school district, you can't easily undo them. You're committed, and here's what really gets me. The psychology of it is almost perfectly designed to keep you blind. When you see a salary offer of $173,000, your brain lights up. That number feels like security. It feels like you've made it. And so you stretch. You buy a house at the top of your budget because you can afford it. You get the nicer car because you've earned it. You pick the better school district because it's for the kids. Every individual decision seems reasonable, but collectively, they create what I think of as a financial ratchet, a mechanism that only clicks in one direction. Your lifestyle expands to match your income, your fixed costs lock in at that level, and suddenly both incomes aren't a luxury, they're a survival requirement. Remove one income, and the whole system collapses. You haven't built wealth. You've built a house of cards that needs constant feeding. A 2019 study from the Federal Reserve found that 39% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money. 39%. These aren't unemployed people. Many of them have good jobs. Some of them have great jobs. They're just fully leveraged with zero margin. Now, here's what I want to be clear about. This is not about Daniel and Sarah making bad choices. This isn't a character flaw. This is a structural outcome. Because here's what happened at a systemic level. As women entered the workforce en masse, which was unambiguously good and important, something quietly changed in the housing market. Suddenly, home sellers and real estate developers weren't pricing homes for one income. They were pricing them for 2. The entire market recalibrated to dual income purchasing power. And when the market recalibrated, it didn't wait for you to decide whether you wanted to use both incomes. It just assumed you would. The bidding wars happened. The prices rose. And now you have to use both incomes just to afford the same house that your single income parents bought with one salary. This is like an arms race where everyone escalates and no one wins. Every family that stretches to buy a better house forces the next family to stretch even further just to stay in the same relative position. The whole floor rose, and the margin that used to be a safety net got eaten by the floor. You might be thinking, okay, Jake, but what am I supposed to do? I can't exactly uninvent the dual income economy. Fair. So here's the mindset shift I want to offer, and I call it the One Income Foundation. The idea is simple. Before you commit to any major fixed cost, a house, a car, a school district, run the numbers as if only one of you were working. Not because you're planning for one person to stop working, but because if your lifestyle requires both incomes to survive, you have eliminated your margin entirely. You've deleted your safety net. Here's what this looks like in practice. Instead of buying a $450,000 home because two of you can afford it, you buy a $300,000 home that one of you could theoretically cover on a tight budget. The second income becomes what it should be, an accelerator, not a life support system. You use it to build savings aggressively, pay down debt, invest, and create actual options. Maybe in 5 years, one partner takes a career break. Maybe you weather a layoff without panic. Maybe you just sleep better at night. The trade-off is real. You're in a smaller house. You're in a less trendy neighborhood, maybe. Your friends might have nicer kitchens. This will require short-term sacrifice, but the payoff is something that money eventually can't buy back. Optionality, the ability to say no, the ability to take risks, the ability to change direction without your entire life collapsing. I want to leave you with one final thought. Our grandparents had something that we largely gave away without realizing it. They had margin, they had slack in the system, not because they were smarter or worked harder, but because the economy hadn't yet figured out how to price it away from them. And somewhere along the way, we traded that margin for the appearance of more. Bigger houses, nicer cars, better zip codes. We look wealthier than any generation in history. And statistically, we are more financially fragile. There is a profound difference between the performance of wealth and actual wealth. Actual wealth is options. It's the ability to walk away. It's the thing that lets you say no to a bad job, a bad situation, a bad year. Without catastrophe, you can hustle your way out of a lot of financial problems. You can side gig your way out of debt, out of bad decisions, out of bad luck. But you cannot hustle your way out of a trap you don't know you're in. Now you know. If this video made you think differently about your own finances, give it a like. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people. And if you want more content about the systems quietly shaping your financial life, subscribe. We're just getting started.